We are trying to get our kids all ready for back to school this year. And one way I think is really important in doing that is academically setting them up for success. And my go-to person on that is Adam Silver. He is an academic coach. He's helped my family and hundreds, if not thousands of other kids, Adam. So thanks for taking the time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Natalie. So I am vice president of Denver Test Prep, and in that role, I do a lot of things, but really what I love is helping kids who have a hard time navigating school feel really successful and figure out ways to be successful in school.
One thing I always thought growing up was I had to figure out how to learn. And it's something I actually think was a fault in growing up myself, but I figured it out. You take that out for people. So you're like, okay, here are some good methods for studying, getting ready for tests, for all of that. So let's get kids ready. It's been a weird year and a half. Hopefully they're going to go back full time and get on the right track, but let's help them get on the right track. What tips do you have for getting back successfulily?
Sure. No, it's been super weird. I'm excited for all the students to go back in person this fall. So honestly, the way I like to think about it is I want students to eventually not need me anymore, or not need people like me anymore. I want them to be able to figure it out on their own. And so to do that, I have a team of coaches. So I coach, and I have a team of 3 other coaches. And what we are always focused on is helping make sure that families and their students are aligned on expectations for an incoming school year. So I think for this year in particular, it's been really wacky. School's been on Zoom. Some schools have been in session for 3 hours a day. Some have been full time. I think reestablishing expectations as a family unit are going to be really important. So if I'm a high school kid, I'm in 9th grade, I'm going into 9th grade, and I think, yeah, it's cool. Like if I get A's, B's, or C's, that's cool. But as a parent,
you're like,
oh,
no, we're not having C's.
Right. Like, let's get on the same page before the school year starts. So I think, we're in early August. School's starting in the next couple of weeks. I think it's really important that families, parents, and kids have conversations about aligning on expectations. And I always, as much as I coach students, a lot of our conversations are with parents too. And I always tell parents not to be afraid of negotiation. Negotiation with a student is a good thing because it helps you get onto the same page. And you have to have a little bit of give and take. And parents are still the parents and still set the boundaries on what are you have final say. But you have to give your students some space to say, this is what I want. This is what's important to me.
Yeah, I think that's great. So we've got family communication. How about and I work with this I have a college student and a incoming senior in high school, and then a 6th grader. So systems I have found in my parenting are so important. Like, what are the systems we're using after school? You get a little break and then you go into this. Like, what do you think about that? And what do you recommend to people?
No, great question. So systems are so important because they're going to happen whether you intentionally put them in place or not, right? So your 6th grader is going to have some sort of routine, whether you help or just let it happen naturally. So I think morning routine and evening routine are super important. So there should be a pretty standard morning routine, whatever that looks like. Get up, have breakfast, shower, get your lunch ready. Whatever it is that you guys decide on, that should be the same thing every day. And then in the evening, basically the same idea. It's obviously not going to look the exact same every day because you might have different plans or sports, but you should have a general expectation around this chunk of time is sports time. This chunk of time is homework time. This chunk of time is dinner time. Set some rules around technology. So many students find themselves in front of YouTube or TikTok or whatever way too many hours of the day. So set some really good boundaries around that. The other thing is that all students need a planner of some sort. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a paper planner. We use different types of planners with all different students. So some love Google Calendar, some love a paper planner, some have bulletin boards on their walls because that's how they function. And it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure it out. At the core, everybody needs a planner. It doesn't have to be the exact same type of planner. So figure out what works with your child.
Yeah, I love that. As long as it's consistent and you're sharing it with people, because I have found through the years, it's like, yeah, I got a plan. What is your plan? Oh, it's in my head.
Right.
No, that's not a plan.
That is not, yeah, that is absolutely not a planner. Yeah. We have some, for sharing, we have some students who use Google spreadsheet or Google Doc, and they share it and they communicate it. Some will communicate it with their parents, and that's how they communicate. Some will sit down on Sunday and say, hey, here's what I'm going through. Here's what my week looks like. But yeah, being able to communicate what it is that you are doing as a student is really important to keep you all aligned.
Yeah. And just everybody on the same page, you said. Okay, so systems, habits, routines, guidelines, all good, especially before school starts. Get off on the right track.
That's right.
Can you talk a little bit about success you've seen in kids and how they study? Like what should that look like? It's different for every kid, but what should it look like?
Well, no, it's a good question. This one is a little bit more standard. The best thing you can do is what we call forced recall, which is essentially just quizzing. And so, well, here's an example. I'll have a student come in, maybe a 10th grade boy will come in and say, I've got a test in a couple of days. And I'll say, how are you studying for that test? And I'll say, I'm going to sit down and review your notes or review my notes. And where I always take that is, you know, that 10th grade boy might be an athlete. And so I'll ask that 10th grade boy, you know, hey, in football, are you going to prepare for your upcoming game this weekend by reading the playbook? And they're like, no, I'm going to go to practice. And I'm like, of course, exactly. You wouldn't just review your notes to go play a football game. You can't just review your notes to go take a test. You have to actually practice putting out the information before you go actually put out the information on the test. So quizzing, forced recall, and repetition is the best way to study for any sort of quiz or a test. In general, when we're talking about quizzes, maybe the night before is fine, but in bigger tests, at least a couple nights before is really when you want to start doing the quizzing and doing the recall. If you can, I tell this to the students all the time, if you can teach the material, you know the material well enough to be successful on a test. If you cannot teach it, you're not yet an expert. And so we make students tell us the material, whether it's math or history or science, whatever it is. If they can teach it to me, then I know that they're going to be successful on the test.
So maybe sit down and ask them, teach me what you're learning. Teach me what you're going through.
Exactly. Yeah. Explain it. Like show me how that problem works. Or or talking about history, like tell me the story behind that. Yeah. Have that conversation with your kids.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And if it's, you know, parents, sometimes kids won't want to talk to their parents, and that's fine. So maybe it's not the parent who has to do that, but maybe it's, you know, maybe it's a friend who you trust academically. Or maybe it's a teacher. Or maybe that's why you have a student stay after school and get a little bit of teacher support for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, figure out how to get your kids to teach the material.
I love that. So can we talk quickly about learning environment and where you see the most success? I mean, naturally kids want to go into their room, close their door and study. What are they doing? We're not sure what they're doing. They're distractions. Like, do you see more success in certain learning environments with the kids you work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's totally anecdotal. I think going in your room and closing the door works for some students, but it's a ripe situation for distraction for most students. So working in an open environment that's a little bit quieter or has some white noise is great. Going to a coffee shop, going to a library is great. Working in school, finding times. A lot of our students who aren't successful, once we switch how they use their free time during the school day is great. So then instead of taking that free hour and socializing, using that free hour while you're on school campus and going to the library or studying with friends is awesome. So kind of quieter white noise, more public areas are good. kitchen counter is a great spot as long as it's not high traffic and lots of distractions. But if it's kind of like, parent is cooking dinner and kid is doing homework or studying, that can be a great spot.
Keeps them on task. What about
Yeah.
technology? So, so much technology is important. I mean, I find as an adult, I'm doing my work right on a computer here, but then the message comes up or an email goes off, or, easy to get distracted. Do you give tips to kids and parents and helping their kids on turning all of those things off when they're using their technology to study?
We do. We give a lot of those tips. We spend a lot of time talking about technology. So things like getting the settings, we don't spend a whole lot of time in the settings of our devices, but I would actually encourage students and parents to go into the settings and set up your device to speak to you in a way that you want. So if you don't want notifications all the time, go in and get the notifications set off.
Yeah.
Or there's some really good technology that will help you turn off your devices. So, 8 p.m. cutoff time, for example, some of our families will do that, and the social media apps go off at certain times. That is really useful. So we'll talk through that with families because it's such a problem right now.
And we can't expect kids.
No, it's part of their
high
life.
Schoolers. It is a part of their life, and it's part of ours where we're trying to figure out how to integrate it while let it be useful, let it be helpful without getting in the way. And that's a tough thing. That's a tough thing for us and adults, and yet they're still learning.
Right. Well, my favorite place to start with students with technology is building self-awareness. So when a parent comes and says, "Hey, my kid is on this technology all the time," the first thing we do is we open up the screen time app and we just say, "How long are you on your technology?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm on for 6 hours a day." Building that self-awareness, and then we start breaking it down. Okay, 6 hours a day. What are you doing on those 6 hours a day? And there's some things that are really healthy and helpful, like maybe you're reading a book on Audible, great, versus 2 hours on TikTok, not so great.
And that time goes so fast.
So fast. Yeah.
Netflix, so all of that.
For sure. Netflix. Yeah. So my favorite is if we can build self-awareness and then help a student make the decision to scale down usage, that's the best. We definitely have that happen, and we definitely have other situations where the student can't scale down usage and it's just too addicting and too easy to grab. And that's where you bring in the other tech devices, like Wi-Fi goes out at a certain time or apps shut down at a certain time, and kids have to ask parents for more permission for time.
Yeah, but the best thing is self-awareness in doing it because you want to do it and you actually want to learn.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, we could talk forever. You're good at this stuff. We appreciate your expertise, and good luck to everybody going back to school. Get those routines in place, and best of luck to you too as you work with these kids and getting them on the right track.
You too. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it.
All right. Good to talk to you.
You too. Bye.